Hi, Paradise family. So we are here today to learn how to make an amazing crossbody bag. This is the Miko men's crossbody bag. So from Miko Craft. If you don't follow Miko Craft, you should absolutely go follow him. He has some amazing patterns on his YouTube video. But this is one of my favorite ones by far. I've made a couple of them, but this is one of my favorite ones. So he calls it a men's crossbody bag. I think it really depends on the design or the vinyl fabric, canvas, whatever you choose to use will make it a men's. But it could really be a unisex bag. Lots of pockets. Let me tell you the pockets. So here on the front, you have a zipper pocket here in the flap. Underneath the flap, you have this front pocket that comes down. And you have pen slots, slip pockets, bigger slip pocket. On the actual front here, you have another zipper pocket that goes the whole thing of the front here. Hang on, we're not done. Then on the back side, you have another zipper pocket, hidden pocket here. Two more. Lots of pockets. On the inside, you have a zipper pocket and another slip pocket on the inside. Now, you could absolutely decide to omit every single one of these pockets and just make it the way that it is with none of that on there. That would be perfectly fine. I will tell you that all of these pockets end up making the seams on this bag incredibly thick. Very, very thick, because some of those seams are 12 layers deep because they end up matching up to each other, especially like with this front pocket here where you have this slip pocket. This slip pocket matches up with the slip pocket that's on the other side of this. So you end up with 12 layers, 13 layers with the gusset, the zipper, all the fold over, everything. So it's very, very thick. So whatever you do with these pockets, so all of the F pieces, you want to make sure that you choose material that is very thin. Very thin. For your, snap that back up. For all of your zipper tabs here, choose thin material. So you can kind of see here, this is really thick in here. So really thick in there. So make sure that you're choosing a thin material for your zipper tabs, because that right there, I mean, that is really, really thick. In fact, this one was so thick that I was not able to top stitch on this one. So, but this is the Miko men's crossbody. Absolutely adorable. I just love the way that she came out. And this vinyl here is a branded Paradise Bags vinyl. So you can see little Paradise Bags on there. I love it. I love it. A friend of mine actually designed this vinyl for me. So I was very ecstatic to finally have something that I could use it on. And this made me very happy. So you can check it out in the store. I'll put a link down below on where, if you would like to purchase this one, where you can go and purchase it. But let's get into the pattern. Let's get started. Okay, so we should have all of our pieces cut, ready to go. We should have all of our center markings done at this point, any double-sided sticky tape added to our pieces. Some additional prep work that we also need to do on our 22-inch centimeter zipper, which is also the 8 5/8 inch zipper. You'll want to turn both of those tops in by 90 degrees. On 3 of your zippers, your 16 centimeter zipper, or also the 6 1/4 inch zipper, you'll want to go ahead and add your zipper tabs to the end. Your 5 7/8, which is the 15 centimeter zipper, same thing. And on your 20 centimeter zipper, which is your 7 7/8 inch zipper, you'll want to add those tabs as well. I only do a single layer of tab. I have found that if you keep this part as thin as possible, it is so much easier to work in the pattern when we get done with this. So if you've got real thin material that you can use, I suggest using that. We'll end up trimming a lot of these tabs down at the end, but it just makes it that much easier when we go to add these to the pattern pieces, and then for the end result, if these tabs are as thin as possible. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our flap. So you want to pull out your 15 centimeter zipper, or also your 5 7/8 inch zipper. And then piece D. And you'll want the exterior and the interior. Where you marked this line on the back with your markings for your magnetic snaps, this will be your bottom and this will be your top. So you should have double-sided sticky tape on both your 7-inch sides. You're going to take your zipper and add it right side of zipper to right side of exterior panel centered, and then place the right side of your lining piece to the wrong side of the zipper. So then you'll have a zipper sandwich, and you're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong side, and top stitch. Okay, so we should now have our exterior and our lining sewn and top stitched across the top there. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your lining and match it up to the top part of your zipper, and the exterior up to the top part of your zipper. But you're not going to sew this just yet. So we're going to lay this flat, so kind of flatten everything out on both sides. We're going to sew down the side at 3/8 inch seam allowance and then curve to the inside. You can freehand the curve. I'll actually end up drawing mine in using piece E3 to do that curve for me, but you'll do that on both sides. So sew down 3/8 inch seam allowance and then curve it into the bottom. If you don't want to do a curve and you just want to leave it straight with the corners, you can do that as well. The curve just makes it look a lot nicer. And actually, I think on this bag here, I may just do straight down and not worry about curving it, just for aesthetic reasons. I think just on this bag, doing it straight down will be just fine. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew down 3/8 inch seam allowance on the sides, trim my sides off, turn this right side out, and then we'll install our magnetic snaps. Okay, so now I have my flap sewn shut, and you can see here at the top I still have all of this left unsewn, because if you sew your top up, then you will have sewn the pocket shut and you won't be able to turn it right side out. So you'll want to go ahead and make your markings for your magnetic snaps like I did here. We can go ahead and install them now, or you can turn it right side out and then install them, but you'll want to trim off your seam allowance here at the ends, and don't get real close, but get as close as you can. I mean, about 1/8 of an inch away from this, and then kind of go back into a 1/4 inch. If you get this up here trimmed down really well, when we go to top stitch this flap, it won't be so difficult to get over that large hump here. So we'll start at about 1/8 of an inch, trim down to a 1/4 of an inch all the way down. If you did where you curve down here at the bottom, make sure to clip into your curves so that it'll curve real nice when you go to turn this right side out. So let's go ahead and install our magnetic snaps, turn this right side out, and top stitch. Okay, so this is what our front flap should look like. We've got our magnetic snaps installed, and you'll install your magnetic snaps based off of the measurements that I gave you at the beginning part of the video. You'll have some double-sided sticky tape that's still here on the back of the pocket. You'll want to leave that in place for now. We'll need it later. And then you should have your top part sewn shut. So go ahead and set your flap off to the side for now. Next, we're going to work on that front pocket of the bag that he's calling it a reclining pocket, but it's just where it's got those two double zips that come down. So we're going to work on that front pocket now. So you're going to need piece E2, piece E3, and one of your piece E4 pieces. Go ahead and set the other one to the side for now. And then you will also need your 16 centimeter zipper, which is the 6 1/4 inch zipper for this. So the first thing that we want to do is grab piece E3. And you'll be looking at what is the right side of the zipper. So for me, the material that I'm using, there is no right or wrong side, but you'll be looking at the right side of piece E3. And we're going to attach our zipper, right side of zipper to right side of fabric, centered. And then we're going to take E4, right side of fabric to wrong side of zipper. Sew this in place at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn them wrong sides, and top stitch. Okay, so we should now have that front part of our pocket sewn with our lining attached and top stitched. So now we want to pull out E2, and we're going to attach E2 to the top part of our zipper, right side of fabric to right side of zipper. And then we're going to pull up our lining part, or E4, to the back part of the zipper. So again, you'll have that zipper sandwich, kind of like how we did the flap. Just like this, except for this time we won't have to turn it out through the top. So we're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn just your top part up, and top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so now our zipper pocket should look like this. So you can see that on the back, and you can see I pulled this top part, only this top part up to top stitch, and I left my lining laying flat. So that's what it should look like. So now what we want to do is we want to baste down the sides of the pocket. That way it'll close up our pocket, and then trim off any excess here on the side that you may have. So like I have some overhang where converting imperial and metric, sometimes you'll end up with 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch more. So just take and trim any excess off, and then this piece will be done. Okay, so now our front pocket should look like this. You can see sewn up there on the sides, and then trimmed any excess off the sides there as well. So go ahead and set this piece off to the side for now. Next, we'll want to pull out piece E1, and hopefully you saw my note about marking on the back side 3 7/8 in from either side, and you have your center marked as well. So what we want to do first is we want to fold wrong sides together right at that 3 7/8 inch mark on both sides. So I kind of do this on the bottom too. So right at that 3 7/8 inch, you can kind of see that on the inside there. And then you're going to do that to the other side as well. Making sure that your bottom and top is staying nice and lined up. Okay, so you should have something that looks a little like this, a little funky. But you'll clip the rest of the way down, making sure that your sides, or that your bottom and your top, are staying nice and straight and aligned. So this top up here, we want to make sure that it stays nice and straight, and it's not going to end up being curved one way or the other. So you'll do that, clip it all the way down, and then you're going to top stitch on this folded edge at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so we should now have something that looks like this. So both of those edges are top stitched. So now what we're going to want to do is take one edge and fold it to the center. So you can see my center here, and I'm just folding it over to the center. Now, once you get this folded over to the center, if you want to take and clip this line and top stitch it, you can do that. I personally am not going to. I'm just going to fold it to the center because I think when you top stitch that part, this back part here, it restricts how wide this will be able to open and contract depending on how much stuff you're putting in that front pocket. So then we'll do the same thing to the other side. We're just going to take and fold that other side, butting it up. Kind of rotate this around, butting it up with the other side there, so you can see where both of those are landing. So go ahead and clip both of those in place, and you'll do the same thing to the bottom. And I'll kind of show you what this looks like. So just like this, so you can see where both of those are butted up against one another on the top and the bottom. So again, if you want to go through here and smooth this part out, and then top stitch that, you can do that. I've just found when it comes to a pleated pocket like this, if you do that top stitching along this edge right here, it then restricts how wide this will be able to open depending on how much stuff you have on the inside of that pocket. So then we're going to base the top and bottom in place. Okay, so now you can see, getting real close there for you, so now you can see how both of those are butted up on the top and the bottom. Go ahead and set this piece off to the side, and we'll need it in the next step, so don't set it too far. Okay, so now we want to pull out our 8 5/8 inch zippers, and that's the 2 zippers that you should have already turned them down by 90 degrees. This is also the 22 centimeter zippers that we'll need. You'll need piece E5, and you'll need both exterior and interior. And then 2 zipper pulls. After you have turned your zippers down by 90 degrees, you'll then want to measure from the top part of your teeth down and cut it at exactly 7 3/4. It's very important. Make sure you trim this down to exactly 7 3/4. If not, this zipper will not fit for that front pocket. Okay, so 7 3/4. So now, after you've done that, go ahead and add your zipper pulls to your zipper tape, and you can pull these all the way up to the top just to keep them out of the way. And then we're going to take our exterior part of E5. We're going to lay exterior to right side of zipper, lining that up at the top. Now you may find that E5 may be a little bit shorter or a little bit longer than your zipper. That's perfectly fine. We'll end up trimming if we need to later. This is not a big deal. And then you'll take right side of interior to wrong side of zipper. Okay, so we've made a little zipper sandwich here. So you can see my interior, wrong side of zipper, right side of zipper, and right side of interior. Now we're going to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong side, and top stitch, and then you'll do the same thing to the other side with your other zipper. Okay, so now our zipper should look like this. So we should have E5 attached to our zippers with our zipper pulls on there. Very important, don't forget your zipper pulls. Of course, if you do, you'll know. Okay, so next you'll want to make sure, and you should have already done this, but mark your centers on E5 on your long edge here. Pull back out piece E1, which is that one where we did our pleats. Decide which is going to be your top or bottom, it does not matter. And then pull out piece E3, and we're going to use this to round our corner, or the bottom of our corners off. So just set that pattern on there, line up the side and the bottom. Okay, so just like this. Now you'll want to pull back out your zipper, zippers that you have. Take and measure down 3/4 of an inch from the top. Now this is a measurement that is not in his original video. He just sort of puts it on here and figures it out, and I had to go through and kind of figure out how far down, because I know for most of us, if we kind of know where we need to end at up here at the top, it makes it a lot easier to go into this curve. So I determined that it is 3/4 of an inch down from the top. So go ahead and mark 3/4 of an inch. And then we're going to attach this zipper to this front panel. So you're going to take exterior part of your zipper piece here to exterior part of your panel. Line up your bottom center, and then take and line up the top part, so your zipper teeth, with the top part of that 3/4 inch mark that you made, and clip that in place. Now what I like to do is I like to clip all along my straight edge here and my straight edge here at the bottom, kind of meeting into this curve. Once I get it to this curve, I'll determine if I need to clip my zipper at all. Honestly, sometimes it just depends on the type of zipper that you're using. Most likely we'll end up having to clip into this zipper, even though I'm not a fan of doing that, so just make sure that you're only clipping up about 1/8 of an inch. We'll do that to the other side. We'll base this in place at we'll base this in place at 1/4 inch. Pull out our zipper pocket piece here. We'll attach this right side of pocket to right side of panel. We'll start up at the top, sewing 3/8 of an inch at the top, leaving a hole about 4 inches wide here at the top, and then sewing around the entire edge at the bottom. But let's start first with adding this zipper to this exterior piece, and then I'll kind of show how to add that other panel to this panel. Okay, so we should now have our zipper basted to our exterior part of our bag, and you'll want to baste that at 1/4 inch seam allowance. That just makes it a lot easier to keep this out of the way when we go to add our next piece. So we're going to take this completed zipper pocket that we did. We're going to lay it right side of zipper pocket to right side of exterior. Line up your centers on the top and the bottom. And actually do this really quick. This will just make it a little bit easier. We're going to end up sewing this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. So go ahead and mark your top 3/4 of an inch down. It'll just be a lot easier to mark it now rather than marking it afterwards. Okay. So go ahead and zip your zippers back up. Take and add the right side of your lining to the right side of your panel. Clip it in place in the centers. And then the rest of the way around. And then we're going to sew this. Now I find it easiest when it comes to sewing curved zippers like this, when we have to sandwich it in there. I find it easiest to sew this bottom first at your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pull this zipper down out of the way. Come up here to this side. Sew down at 1/4 of an inch just until you get to that corner here. And then pull your zipper back up. Sew the curve, because it's easiest to sew the curve if the zipper isn't in the way. And then do the same thing on this other side. So, and on this side for me, I would sew up. So I would sew up and then pull my zipper up out of the way, sew my curve, and then come back and sew my top at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now I know that it sounds like a lot, but it can be difficult at times to make sure that you're keeping your zipper out of the way in this corner and being able to fold everything back and not have any puckers or unwanted pleats. So if you have the ability to kind of keep all this free and keep all this unclipped, to be able to move that zipper in and out of the way. It's just far easier to do that. So try it that way. See if you like it better than maybe how you were doing it before. But that's how I do it. So I'll sew the bottom at a 1/4 inch, come down, sew my side, pull my zipper back up out of the way, sew the curve, and then come back and sew my top at 3/8 inch seam allowance. At the top, when we sew our 3/8 inch seam allowance, you'll want to leave a hole about 4 inches wide so that we can turn this right side out. After we sew this top at 3/8 inch seam allowance, we'll take and fold down our top out of the way, so like this, before we turn it, and then clipping our curves and clipping our corners. So let's go ahead and sew this, and we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, so our front part should now look like this. We still have our top up here that we need to top stitch, and then top stitching around the entire edge. So when it comes to down here where that pleat here ends, because most of us use vinyl, that spot can get pretty thick right in there, especially up here at the top. So you're going to take you a pair of seam pliers to those spots. So you just want to press them down as much as you can to get it as flat as you can. So I can feel now that that's pretty flat in there. And then of course I'm going to do the same thing up here at the top. Just as flat as you can get it. The other option that you have is if you have a cam snap machine, you know, the big green thing that you push down for your rivets. If you have one of those, it usually comes with a key fob attachment. You can actually take that key fob attachment and do the same thing. Just stick this in between the two key fob attachments and pull that that cam snap, you know, machine down on top of it. Okay, so once we've got all these good and flat and our corners are good and poked out, we're now going to top stitch the entire outside edge of this pocket. So, small mistake, guys, and yes, I could have recorded over this part and just redone it, but I like for you guys to know that I make mistakes as well. We have not installed our other part of our magnetic snap, so our flap is going to go on like this. So we've installed these magnetic snaps, but we have not installed the female side. Now, because in his video he doesn't give you measurements for these snaps here, I kind of had to come up with them on my own. So I could figure out exactly where I need to place them on this part of my bag, but a surefire way to know exactly, to make sure that I am 100% where it needs to be. I'm going to find the center of my flap, and I just do a little crease. You can put a little mark there if you want, but I just do a little crease. And I'm going to lay that center with my panel. And then I'm going to mark from the center of my male. So I'm just going to line it up with my center, and then I'm going to mark down on my main panel here, mark down 1 3/8 inch. Sorry, I wanted to make sure that I was telling you right. Mark down 1 3/8 inch on your main panel. Make sure I get that real good. And then same thing on the other side. So maintaining your center here. Find the, mark the center of your, so I'm just laying my ruler to where it's about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. So I know that that's the center of my male snap. And then measuring down from my top of my main panel, 1 3/8 inch. I know it's a little weird to install magnetic snaps on the outside, you know, marking it on the outside. But magnetic snaps are going to cover up our markings, so I'm not too worried about this. So then we are going to mark our magnetic snaps. Okay, cut our holes. Be very careful not to cut through to the other side. So what I recommend is just putting your hand in here and kind of holding it out of the way. Don't cut yourself. And marking those holes, and then installing your magnetic snaps, and then sewing back across the top. Okay, so now that we've made our little mistake, we now have our magnetic snaps installed, and so you can kind of take a look at this and what that's going to look like. And again, just measuring it that way just gives you a surefire that it's going to line up, it's going to lay nice and pretty. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. The very first one that I did, my flap was off-centered, and so it was kind of puckered up like that, and I didn't like that. So I decided to start measuring it that way, and it's perfect every single time. And it's just because he does not give you measurements of where to place these magnetic snaps on the flap. So if we had those, it'd be a lot easier, and then we could just measure what the measurements that he gives us for these. But it's on there now. It is so stinking cute so far. So we're going to set this piece off to the side, and then we're going to start working on our interior pockets. So we need to pull out piece F1, F2, F3, F4. Now F4, I mentioned in the very beginning part of the video that you should have measured down from the top 3/4 of an inch. Also with F5, you should have measured down 3/4 of an inch from the top and 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, and then made these markings on your pin slot piece, which is 1.5 inches from the edge. So we're going to start with our pin slot. That 3/4 inch mark that you made here, we're going to fold that down to that mark, give it a good crease, and then we're going to fold it one more time down. So then we end up with a crease like this with no raw edges there. Now you can use double-sided sticky tape. I'm just going to clip this in place. Go ahead and do the same thing to the bottom. So line up to that 3/4 inch mark, and then fold it over one more time. Now this does not have to be perfect. This is just a pin slot holder, and this is just to ensure that we have no raw edges. Now if you chose to use a piece of vinyl for this part, which I don't recommend, but if you did, you could just cut off 3/4 of an inch and be perfectly fine. So that's how it should look. Now same thing with piece F4. You should already have that 3/4 inch mark. I know it's really hard to see, but 3/4 inch mark there. Same thing, we're going to fold down to that 3/4 inch mark, give it a good crease, and then fold it over one more time, right at that 3/8 fold that you just did. And what's nice is, depending on the material that you used, sometimes they just crease with no problem. Once you put the line on there, it just gives it a good crease right then and there. Okay, so just like this. So now on both of these pieces, we are going to top stitch as close to this bottom folded edge as you can get. He calls it a hem stitch, but it's just a top stitching. We just want to get as close to that as we can, so about a 1/16 of an inch. So we'll do that to both pieces, F5 and F4. Okay, so we should now have our top stitching done here on piece F. Let me make sure the number's right. On piece F4. And then piece F5, and you can see where I got really close to that bottom line there. I actually used a guided foot to help me get close to it. So go ahead and set piece F4 off to the side. Grab piece F3. F3, this is the backing for your pin slot. You're going to mark down 2 inches from the top. Attach one side of your pin slot right up to that 2-inch mark and clip it in place. Same thing on the other side. And then same thing on this side as well. So right up to that 2-inch mark, clip it in place. Okay, you'll sew just 1/8 of an inch on either side here just to hold that in place. After you do that, what I like to do is find the center of this piece F3. I will lay this pocket here to where it puckers up and meets that center. I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. But basically you want to make some pin slots here. So you sewing on these lines. So once you get these sides sewn, it'll be a lot easier to just kind of maneuver these lines here around. So you can see that line there and that line here to make those pin slots. So once you've got these sewn, then you'll want to just maneuver these around as best as you can, finding out, you know, kind of something that looks kind of like that there. So you'll have 3 pin slots by the time you get done by sewing on those lines. Okay, enough about that. That was a lot to explain. So after you do that, pull out F4 and F2. And you're going to attach F4 to F2. Don't find the center of F2. That center will end up changing once we add the pin slot to the other side. So don't find the center. Just line everything up as best as you can and base stitch this in place. And then when we come back, we will attach our pin slot to our slip pocket. Okay, so we should now have our slip pocket complete, and we should now have our pin slots complete. And I kind of thought about this while I was sewing this. I actually took a pin to make sure that I was getting good slots. I actually took a pin and slid it in there to see where I needed to make that first sew line, and sewed that one, and then I was able to sew the other one much easier. Now let me explain that I've made 5 of these bags, and I just thought about that. So we want to make sure that we have our top, which is, we measured 2 inches down at the top. So you should have it just like this here. Okay. Now you could choose to put your pin slot on either side. I'm going to put mine on the right side. But the reason why I have you measure down 2 inches is because it then makes it to where this seam here of the pin slot will fall below, just below this seam here. Otherwise, it's 8 layers thick if you put both of those seams together. So we're going to put both of those together. And you'll see how that one seam just falls right below the other one. So then we don't end up with an 8 layers thick spot. Because if you were doing regular cotton, that would be a really, really thick spot. Okay, so now we're going to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Fold our seam back towards our slip pocket. Okay, so back towards our slip pocket, and top stitch on our slip pocket. Don't top stitch on your pin slot. So we should now have our smaller slip pocket and our pin slots now complete. And you can see I pulled that seam allowance towards my slip pocket and top stitched that down. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and find the center of this completed pocket. Pull out one of your F1 pieces, and you should already have your top center marked there. You're going to add this to your completed piece. Sew this top at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong side, and top stitch it, and then base stitch around. Okay? Your other 2 F1 pieces, you're going to put those right sides together. Sew across the top at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn it wrong sides together, top stitch, and then base the other 3 edges. So our 2 pockets should look like this. So we have our smaller slip pocket there, our pin slots, and then our other slip pocket. So now I want you to pull back out piece E3, and we're going to use E3 to round off our corners, just like we did with piece E1. So you'll set your piece E3. It's going to be taller than the pattern. Don't cut the top off. We just want to mark the curves and cut the curves off of this slip pocket as well as this slip pocket here. Now you could, because we're going to attach these to two of our piece A pieces, you could just attach these to your piece A pieces and then trim off any overhang that you may have. I've just found it easier to go ahead and already have those curved so that I can match the curves up nicely and I don't have to worry about doing big trims later on. So with that being said, pull out your outer A1 piece, so outer A1, and your inside A1. And go ahead and set your other two pieces off to the side. Now this outer piece here is going to be behind this pocket, okay? So when you lift the flap up, you'll be able to see that this back part here. So make sure that you're choosing a fabric that maybe matches or is a contrasting to go there with that. So we're going to take our outer piece and then make a choice. I mean, in the pattern, he has you do the pin slots with the smaller slip pocket here on this piece to where this part here is then behind our front part. But you can choose, right? So you can choose to either do this one or do the ones with the pin slots. It does not matter. You're just going to do one or the other. So choose whichever one you want. We're going to do that and then sew your other piece to your other A piece. And then after you sew those two together, you're going to butt these up and baste those in place. So curve your edges, sew them to your pieces however you want to put them in there, and then base stitch these two pieces together. Okay, so this is what our pockets attached should look like. So this is the exterior, or what will be underneath our front piece here. And this is the interior, and yes, I've changed my color out. I'm sure some of you probably saw that. And then I decided I didn't want my pin slots to be up against my zipper. I have another bag that I've made, the one that I showed you at the beginning of the video, where this pin slot here that's on the edge, once you get that zipper sewn in there, this pin slot almost becomes obsolete. I mean, you can get pins kind of in there a little bit, but once you sew that, it's not really any good. It's very hard to get the pin in and out. So I decided to put my smaller slip pocket with my larger slip pocket and my pin slots on the inside of my bag. And then I chose to put that larger slip pocket on the outside of my bag. Now, if you wanted to sew this up closed, you would want to do that before you baste these two panels together. But just to kind of show you what it's starting to look like. So it's going to be kind of like that. So you have your flap here. And that piece would come down. Very cute. I love it so far. So the last thing to do with this piece here is to sew our flap on. So we're going to, now you should already have your center marked. Go ahead and pull that double-sided sticky tape off that we left on the back. Hopefully it comes off in one piece. Mine did not want to. Okay, and attach that to the center of the exterior part. So whatever you chose for your exterior part, go ahead and add that flap to that piece, centered and all the way across. Don't try and curve your pattern or your flap down, just lay it across straight, and we'll end up clipping any corners off. So if you kind of look from this back side here, so I'll end up clipping that little bit of a corner off on both sides. So go ahead and base this piece in place. Okay, so just like that. Super cute. Now we'll want to add our front part. So just like we added this zipper to this piece here, we're going to add this zipper to this section here. So you'll just take and line up your centers, and then where your zipper, this top of this zipper is going to lay, it should lay just above this seam here. Okay, so just above that seam there. Again, measurements are not given, so my best suggestion that I can give you is that keep your zipper open when you're forming your zipper around this curve, and then up, you know, as far as you can get it. The other thing that I like to do is I will keep this closed, add my bottom piece, and then kind of push this down a little bit and out of the way to see. And if you kind of do that, you can then see that that zipper, if you kind of push it down flat like this, you can see that those zipper teeth are going to fall. They should fall just above, so your teeth will be just above this this pocket here, and that's whether you do, no matter what pocket you do, but the teeth will go just above that. So let's go ahead and sew that in place. Raw edges together, and it does want to be like this. You don't want to go this way with it, because we're going to end up binding this. So let's go ahead and sew that in place, and then we're almost halfway done, and we'll get the bag finished the rest of the way. Okay, so our front is now complete with our interior pockets attached to panel A. You can kind of see how that's going to look so far. So you've got your flap with your zipper pocket here in the front. Super cute. And then under the flap, you take and zip this down. And then that folds down. You've got your zipper pocket here in the front, and then your slip pocket here on the inside. Now you may have chose to do the smaller slip pocket with the larger slip pocket with the pin pockets on your front piece here. Totally up to you how you want to do that. So go ahead and set this piece off to the side. Next, we're going to work on our interior zipper pocket. So you'll need piece G, your interior piece A, and just one of those. I just have different colors, so I'm going to pick my red one for this. Your zipper pull and your 18 centimeter or 7 1/8 inch zipper. So 18 centimeter, okay? If you haven't cinched the ends of your zipper, make sure you do that, because you don't want them to come unraveled. Okay, set your zipper pull and your zipper off to the side for just a moment. Grab your panel A piece and your panel G piece. At the beginning part of the video, I mentioned that you should already have these lines drawn on here, but not cut out. So we're going to use these lines to sew this box on. So you're going to take your center mark, so you should already have a center mark here on piece G, and center it with the top of piece A. So just like this. Okay, you're going to clip or pin this in place, either way, and then you're going to sew around the outside edge of this box. Just the outside edge. Make sure that you're getting it right directly into your corners when you're sewing this. After you get done sewing it, you're going to cut through, do your Y incision on either side, and then we're going to turn this fabric to the back, so then it becomes more like a zipper overlay at that point. So we'll do that. So we'll sew your box down all the way around, cut into it and turn it the wrong side, but do not top stitch it, just pin it in place. Okay, so you should now have your zipper sewn, just that outside box, and then you should have it cut down the center, and then your Y incision. Make sure you get as close as you can to that corner without clipping your stitches. Don't clip your stitches. You would not be a happy camper. So the easiest way to turn this is, before we think about turning it all to the other side, we're going to take and we're going to finger press right along that sewn edge on the top, bottom, and sides. Okay, and now we're going to take and turn it to the back side. Just makes it a little bit easier if you do that initial kind of finger pressing beforehand. So turn it all to the back side, kind of roll your seams out, and then we're just going to pin all of this in place, but you're not going to top stitch it just yet. If you kind of think about it this way, we now have a zipper overlay at this point, right? So if you imagine there's a zipper overlay here rather than having the fabric to the back. So it's really no different than that. So the easiest way is just to take and add a couple of pins right down here to hold that fabric to the back side. Okay, set this piece off to the side for a moment after you've pinned it all in place. Grab piece E4 and your 18 centimeter zipper. If you haven't found the center of your zipper, go ahead and do so, because this zipper will actually be smaller than this panel, so we definitely want the center. Okay, you should already have double-sided sticky tape on E4. If you don't, you may want to add some. I find it very helpful when making these type of zipper pockets to have double-sided sticky tape. Go ahead and lay your zipper wrong side of zipper to right side of panel. Or as I heard somebody say once before, wrong side of zipper or ugly side of zipper to pretty side of panel. That was kind of a unique way of doing it. So now we're going to base stitch this zipper in place. After you base stitch it, you'll add the other raw edge of your zipper to the other edge of your zipper panel, base that in place, add some additional double-sided sticky tape to your zipper, and add your zipper pull. Very important, make sure you add your zipper pull before going on to the next step. Okay, so you should now have your zipper pocket opening pinned down, and you can see you cannot see this back side at all, so it doesn't matter what fabric you use. So you're going to have that pinned down now. You should have your zipper basted to your zipper panel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take and center up our zipper pocket with panel A. Okay, centered over the zipper. And so what I like to do is I will actually take this to my cutting mat and line up my center on my cutting mat, and then line up my center with that same mark on the cutting mat to ensure that I get this perfectly centered. After you do that, you're going to pull, see if I can do this while holding it, you're going to pull your zipper pocket up, okay, up like this, and sew across the bottom at 1/8 of an inch, starting and stopping about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. After you do that, you'll pull your zipper pocket back down, and then sew up the sides, across the top, and back down the other side. Okay, so now our zipper pocket should be sewn in place. We still need to close our zipper pocket up though. So you have a choice. You can leave this extra fabric here. You can leave this in place, or you can just simply take and pull it out of the way. I like to leave mine in place because it gives a little bit of stability to the zipper and to the zipper pocket. So all you're going to do is just fold your side back, sew down the side of the bag as close as you can get to the bag here, and same thing on the other side. So you'll just fold this back and sew as close as you can get. Make sure you sew over your little triangle tabs here. Again, just give stability to the bag and to the zipper pocket itself. And then once you're done with that, you can take and trim any excess off, and then trim this top piece off. Okay, and now our zipper pocket should be done. So you can see I trimmed all that other green part off. I do leave this part here just because it's kind of hard to get into there with it sewn on the sides. Pretty cool way to create a zipper pocket without needing a zipper overlay. So now we're going to work on that back hidden zipper that's on the back part of the bag. So you'll need your 7 7/8 inch zipper, or your 20 centimeter zipper. You will need both piece A 2 pieces, and you will need both piece A 3 pieces. So we're going to start with piece A2. Hopefully you've already found the center of your zipper. If you didn't, go ahead and find the center. Remove the tape from your exterior piece here, Now, we want our zipper to close going to the top. So depending on how you put the zipper on here will depend on whether or not the zipper is on the right side or the left side. I've just always been putting mine down to the bottom to where my zipper is closing to the right side, and then my zipper pocket will end up being on the left. I don't really think it matters, honestly, just so long as when we go to finish up the back part of the bag, the zipper is facing up, closed up. And I'll kind of show you what I mean. But for the moment, go ahead and take the right side of your zipper to the right side of the exterior panel for piece A2 and line up your raw edges. And yes, your zipper tab is going to be longer. We'll trim that down later. Okay, and then add your lining. So once you've done that, you're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, turn it to the wrong side, and top stitch. Okay, so that panel should now be complete and top stitched all the way around. Go ahead and set this piece off to the side for just a moment. Grab out your A3 piece, your exterior piece. If you've already added double-sided sticky tape to one edge, you'll want to measure in from that edge 1 1/4 inches from the edge. If you haven't put double-sided sticky tape, just one of the long edges, you'll want to mark from one of the long edges, you'll want to mark 1 1/4 inches. In the video, he says 1 3/16. A 1/16 of an inch more is not going to make a difference. It just means that the lip of what's going to go over your zipper pocket is going to be just a 32nd of an inch more because it's going to get folded in half. So I just say 1 1/4, and that ends up being just right. So now we're going to fold at that 1 1/4 inch, kind of like how we did the pleats on the front of the bag. We're just going to fold at that 1 1/4 inch mark. You can take your seam roller and roll that out. Okay, and then we're going to top stitch this folded edge at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so you should now have panel A3 exterior top stitched along that folded edge that we did. So go ahead and pull your zipper piece back out, and to kind of give you an idea of what this is going to look like. So you'll end up having something like this where that zipper is on the inside. So what you're going to do is take and lay your zipper flat with your exterior piece where you've added your double-sided sticky tape. So right side of panel to right side of zipper. This will get in the way, but once you put this to the zipper, then you can clip this out of the way so it's not in the way when you go to sew this. But you'll add your exterior panel to your zipper, and keeping that out of the way like that, take your lining panel and add it to the back part of the zipper. So then you've got your zipper sandwich there like that. Okay, so you'll sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you're done, you're going to flip just your lining up. Okay, just the lining up. Don't flip your exterior panel up. Leave that out of the way. You'll flip this up and top stitch just the lining panel. Okay, so we should now have our other panel attached to our zipper pocket. Excuse me. And then you can see where I only top stitched my lining and not my exterior. If you top stitch your exterior, you could, let me explain, you could top stitch this piece down here. It's not going to affect the bag itself. It's not going to affect the pocket, but then that makes it to where this flap will then be restricted on how far you can pull it back. So, and actually in his video, he doesn't do the top stitching at all, but I have found that if you top stitch this one part here, it'll lay much flatter and doesn't get caught in the zipper. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to line everything up. We want to sew all 3 edges of our pocket. trim any excess off that we have, and then you're going to grab pattern piece A1, lay it down, and draw in your curves for your the bottom and the top of the bag on all four. Now you could just take your last A1 because we're going to base stitch this on and then trim it afterwards, but I have found that if this piece is already in that shape, by just taking my pattern and drawing it out, it makes it so much easier to align everything and not have to do lots of trimming later on. So we're going to do that. We're going to base stitch all three edges, trim all this extra off, and then put our curves in. And then after we do that, we're going to attach after we do that, we're going to take our last A1 piece and baste it in place with our zipper pocket here. And then that'll then give us two sides to our zipper pocket. After you baste that in place, then we're going to take the other inside piece and baste it to this panel. So then we'll have a completed back panel. So now we should have a panel that looks like this. That has our inside zipper pocket and then our outside zipper pocket. One thing that I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure that your zipper pull is closing to the top. So hopefully you got that if you're sewing along with me, but that zipper pull needs to close to the top. So this is the back, this is the front. It is super cute so far, so if you kind of look at it like that, very cute. So go ahead and set both of those panels off to the side. And next we want to pull out our last zipper, which is your 32 centimeter or 12 5/8 zipper. And all four pieces of piece B. At the moment, we're just going to focus on one exterior and one interior piece. If you haven't singed your zippers, looks like I forgot this one, go ahead and make sure you do that. And find your centers. After you find your center, you're going to, don't put your zipper pulls on just yet because they'll just end up getting in the way. So something that I do that I know is very scary for everybody, go ahead and separate that zipper. It just gets in the way if you have the whole thing on there. So after you find your center, take and lay the right side of your zipper to the right side of your exterior, and then the right side of your lining to the wrong side of the zipper. Sew this in place at 1/4 inch. Now the original pattern calls for a 3/8 inch seam allowance for your zipper. I do not sew my zippers at 3/8 inch. However, that then will mean that our zipper gusset will be, slightly wider than our bottom and side gusset. But I'm going to show you how we're going to trim that down. So we're going to sew it at 1/4 inch. You're welcome to sew it at 3/8 inch if you would like, but for me that means that I have to change my foot, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to sew it at 1/4 inch, turn it wrong side, and then top stitch around the entire edge. And you'll do that for both pieces of piece B. Okay, so we should now have our top zipper gusset complete, sewn and top stitched all the way around, and have your zipper pulls on there. So now we'll want to pull out our square rings. I like to top stitch the tops of mine here, so as close to my square ring as I can. That just keeps this from, being able to play around and move around a whole lot. So I like to do that. I like to top stitch mine real close to the edge here. So now we're going to take these and set these centered with our zipper. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't quite get it. So we're centered with our zipper just like this, lining up. Well, you can pull this out a little bit further if you want, but just centered with your zipper like that. And then you're going to sew across here, connecting panel to panel, just about 1/8 of an inch away from the panel. So you'll do that on both sides. After you've sewn those in place, you'll want to pull out piece C, and this is our last panel piece, piece C. After you've sewn, Well, here, we'll do that real quick. Let's just sew this in place real quick. So it'll be a little bit easier for me to explain. Okay, so once you have your tabs sewn in place there on either side, you'll then take your exterior panel C, and you should already have your centers marked on the long edge. Take and attach that to your zipper gusset piece. Now remember, I said that our zipper gusset piece is going to be just slightly longer or slightly wider, and you can see it's not much, about 1/8 of an inch, so about 1/16 of an inch on either side. We're going to correct that after we sew this in place. So you're going to sew this in place, just baste this first one in place, and then you're going to take your lining and add it to the back side. Make sure that you're matching your lining up with your exterior piece. Okay, so remember they're a little off, so make sure that this lining piece is lined up with this exterior piece here, piece C. Okay, so then you'll sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance, turn them wrong sides, and we're going to top stitch the entire thing. Okay, so we should now have our gusset sewn and then top stitched or base stitched in place all the way around. So now we need to address, if you did a 1/4 inch seam allowance on your zipper here, you're going to have this problem. So right here you can see it, I mean it's just a sliver, about 1/16 of an inch on either side. What you're going to do is you're going to angle your scissors from the gusset side going up. So let me kind of show you. So this is my gusset side, this is my zipper side. So I'm going to take and hold my scissors, and I'm just going to angle up and cut that little sliver off. So now we have a nice clean edge here that's just a subtle increase so that when we go to clip all of this, it'll fit correct. So do the same thing on the other side. Now that only pertains to you if you did the 1/4 inch seam allowance on your zipper. If you did a 3/8 seam allowance on your zipper, then you should not have that problem at all. But you can see I have nice clean edges now. So now we need to find the 1/4 markings on our gusset. You should already have your centers marked here on your gusset panel and on your main panel C. So that'll be our 1/2 inch or our half marking, not half inch, half marking. So go ahead and line those half markings up and then pull all of this straight and flat and clip where that meets. That then becomes our 1/4 marking. We'll need these markings when we go to add our panels on, so it's very important to get these nice and straight and clean, because it's what's going to help us line our panels up for our front and back panels. Okay, so now you should have 1/4 markings. No, it's kind of hard to see, but 1/4 marking there, and then a 1/4 marking down here at the bottom. So you should have 1/4 markings all the way around. Plus, it's fun to say 1/4 markings. Okay, so once you have all 4 of those markings done, we are now going to start adding our panels to our gusset. Personally, I like to start with my front panel, because then this will be open on the inside and I can help maneuver these around the around these curves where the zippers are at. So I like to start with my front panel and add my front panel to my gusset panel first. But because we have some pretty thick seams up here in the top, right? So we have these pretty thick seams that are up here. You really want to grab you a pair of non-serrated pliers. I do recommend these, and I'll put a link down below. They're seam pliers. We're going to take these seam pliers and we're really going to mash down and get those seams really good and flat. That's just going to make it a lot easier when we go to sew this and not have to worry about any skip stitching. So again, right here where these other seams are at from your pocket, if those are a little on the thick side, go ahead and mash those down real good. The flatter the better. Be a little hard on the hands, but well worth it. If you have any nubbies left over from where you sewed your flap on, just go ahead and trim those off. Okay. For your gusset piece, same thing. If you have any overhang from your lining, just go ahead and trim any overhang off. When we go to do our binding, the neater the edge, the better. So we have nice, neat, straight edges. When we go to do that binding, it's just going to sit and fit a lot better onto our edges. So even if it's just a sliver, you still want to take and cut all that away. I think I must have pulled on my lining a little too hard on one side. Okay, so now we want to flip our gusset inside out, so wrong side out. And then you can decide, I mean, it does not matter. Your zipper gusset here is the exact same, so you can choose whatever side is going to face front or whatever side is going to face back. So we're going to take and first zip up our zippers, and then take and tuck them down into, so just take and tuck them down and out of the way for the moment. Same thing with this top one, just take and tuck it into the zipper itself, just for now. Okay. We have quarter markings here on our panels. So if you can see that quarter marking that I have right there, and then same thing on this side over here. I have a quarter marking there, and then top and bottom. So you're going to take your bottom of your panel, line it up with your marking on your gusset, the bottom gusset. And what I like to do is I like to get all of my straight edges lined up first from my quarter marking. So here on the bottom, I'm just going to just across that straight edge. Don't go into your curves just yet. Okay, same thing up here at the top. Tuck that zipper back in there if it came out. Now this front panel, she likes to fight you a little bit because she hasn't been molded yet. Don't let her win. So same thing here at the top. I'm just going to take and match up my center mark. And then I'm going to match up my straight edges. And by pinning the straight edges across like this, it's just going to keep it to where you don't have to keep going back and putting a clip on. I know we've all been there where we've been clipping, and then we go to move and adjust our panel, and now a clip has gone flying across the room. So clipping across the straight edge like this beforehand just keeps you from having to worry about that. So see, it wants to get stuck down here, just lift her back up and lift her out of the way. So now come over to your side and clip in your quarter marking here on the side. And same thing, we're just going to clip all the way along this straight edge here. And then same thing going down, all the way down. Don't get into your curve just yet. You're going to have to clip into your seam. And so we'll do that when we're ready to go into our curves. Okay, so now we should have something that looks like this. This particular bag pattern is designed to where you have to clip into your seam gusset here. So all along these straight edges, you're going to clip into your seam about 1/8 of an inch. We're going to end up finishing this bag at 1/4 inch. Again, not a fan of doing a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I just think it's a waste. So we're going to actually finish this at 1/4 inch. You can finish it at 3/8 inch. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just I just don't like to sew at a 3/8 inch. So we're going to clip into our curves. We're about 1/8 of an inch. So we're initially going to sew this though at 1/8 of an inch all the way around. When you're doing that 1/8 inch seam allowance, you're going to focus on making sure that all of your edges are matching up nice and pretty, and that nothing is going to be shifted. You're not going to end up with any buckles where you may need to undo your stitching and redo it again. After you do your 1/8 inch stitching, you're then going to go back in and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, if you want to sew at a 3/8, you can, but I will not be. I'll be doing a 1/4 inch. So we'll do that to the front, and then you'll add your back panel in the exact same manner that you did your front panel, and then we'll be ready to do the binding. Okay, so now both of your panels should be added to your main gusset, front and back. If you have any overhang here around your corners, make sure that you trim that down, and any overhang really on the straight edges or anything like that. Make sure you trim all of that down to where it's all nice and even. That will make a huge difference when we go to put our binding on. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to use our binding, or take our binding. Now I'm using Olifun for my binding. I have found that the thinner the binding, the better for when you go to turn this right side out. So a lot of the times when people turn their bags right side out after binding, they have these really thick like humps and bumps around their edges that they can't get smoothed out. It is in my opinion that two things are going on there. Either A, they're using too large of a seam allowance, or B, they're using too thick a binding. And that thicker binding is just causing more weight and more thickness in your seams here. So try and use as thin a material as you can. I've seen where people use fold over elastic, Olifun, gross grain ribbon. I do not recommend waterproof canvas unless it is a thin Cadora 60, whatever that is, Cadora, really thin waterproof canvas. Because again, using that waterproof canvas, you're just putting extra weight and extra thickness here in your seam, and it's just not needed. So Olifun, you can get it at Hobby Lobby. You can buy it online at Hobby Lobby. You can also get it on Amazon, but it is far more expensive on Amazon than it is on at Hobby Lobby. So I'll put the link down below so that you can go find you some Olifun. Comes in pretty much all the primary colors, and it's really inexpensive and easy to work with. Okay, so little tip for binding. The width of your binding needs to be 4 times that of your seam allowance. So for example, my seam allowance is a 1/4 inch, so my binding needs to be 1 inch wide. If you were doing 3/8 inch, then you would want to do 1.5 inch wide binding. I think I did that math right, but you want to do 4 times. The reason why we want to do 4 times is because when we get into thick seams like this, if you do 2 times, you're not going to be able to wrap around this seam and cover up your stitching on either side. Okay, so 4 times is perfect. So I like to set my bag in front of me. I know that I'm going to be sewing in this direction, so I want to add my binding in that direction. So I start as far over as I can, and there's a couple of different ways that you can add binding. You can clip it, you can hand baste it, you can glue it. It's all up to you. I'm just going to clip mine in place. And so what I do is I just fold mine center and find that initial center point for my binding, and then lay that center right on top of my seam edge here. Another way that you can make sure that you've got your binding in the right position is if you take on one side, set your binding right alongside your, let me see if I can't move this over a little bit. Set your binding right alongside your stitching so you can see my stitching there. So if you lay it right on top on the side that you're going to be sewing on, and then wrap it around, you know that you're going to have enough clearance to not only cover your stitching up, but to also make sure that you're going to catch it on the back side. So I just fold mine in half because that's easiest for me to do, and then set that down on the edge of my seam and kind of pull down on it to make sure that it's nice and even. And then I just take and hold in my one hand over here, and then I use my thumb and my pointer to just help me guide that along. Now the nice thing about Ollie Fun is that it's got a little bit of stretch to it. So when I'm coming over here to my curve, I'm just going to take and kind of tug on this a little bit to go around my curve. So then it's just going to go around it nice and smooth. So when I go and sew, I'm not going to end up with accidental puckers in here. So those are my couple of tips for binding. So now we're going to add our binding all the way around. When you get to the end, I always recommend, whether you're using non-fraying material or not, to take and fold under your binding at the end. It just makes it look a lot nicer. So whether you're using fraying material or you're using ribbon or whatever the case may be, just take and fold that under there at the edge and make sure that you're overlapping your binding by about an inch or two. Not much, but just by a little bit. So go ahead and do that. Add your binding. Let's go ahead and do our strap. So you may have chosen to do a much wider strap or a smaller strap. I went with a 1-inch strap. This is a pretty standard thing that we're going to do. So you have your middle bar here. I'm going to take and pull that middle bar all the way up, feed my strap through over that bar. So now I should have something that looks like this. Now, because I'm using a little bit thinner webbing here, I'm going to take and fold my webbing down by about 3/4, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and then fold it down to my long edge. So then you should have something that looks like this. Now, if you're working with a vinyl strap, you may not be able to fold it under like this. It may end up being too thick, in which case I would say you may want to use some type of cover to cover up your raw edges. You can cut something from vinyl. You can use strap ends, all kinds of different ways that you can do that. If you have any of Inality design patterns, in most of the end of her patterns, she has a way to actually cover the straps up to where it's not too thick and it ends up not being raw. So then we're just going to sew across here. I always do 2 lines of stitching to make sure that it's definitely not going to come undone. And then your strap will be ready to be attached to the bag. So let's sew our binding and then we will be all done. Oh my goodness. How stinking cute is this bag? So cute. So cute. So I am so happy with the way that this came out. All of those adorable rotten apple zipper pulls. You can really see the difference here and how in the thickness. So between this one where I used vinyl here and the difference where I used Ollie Fun here instead. So when I was talking about the binding, so you can see how even after I do binding, my edges aren't real thick the way that some people are reporting with binding. And that's because we are using the thinnest type of binding that we can use. But I love this one so very much. It's going to be very difficult to get rid of her. You can also see now that we have finished the bag, by measuring down where those magnetic snaps are, the way that we did, this is just going to lay nice and flat. It's not going to be bunched up or buckled here in the middle. So cute. I love making this bag. I will definitely be making more of this bag. This is probably my 4th one so far, and I continue to make more of them. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give it a big old thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and ring that bell. And as always, live a paradise life. Thanks.